Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about unit testing. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, is it normal for a new software engineer to spend all of their time unit testing the senior engineer's code? No. Well, no, that's not normal, and this is where I really do hate the fact that we don't have a good definition of a senior, because holy shit, everybody's a senior these days if they know how to use WordPress or Gatsby or something like that. But no, yeah, that's definitely not normal. Usually the seniors are writing their own unit test, if assuming now, of course, that they are actually writing unit tests. Because unfortunately the requirements on, as I said, being senior is sort of the same thing as saying that you are experienced. Well, what does that mean, really? And senior, what does that really mean? Because it's the same term we use the term senior for anybody who has usually now 5+ years and up to 20 years. And it's the same term we use for people who have 20 years but can barely produce anything useful, and it's the same term we use for the people who invent most of the tools that you and I use. So I don't really think so much about that term. But if you find yourself being a new software developer and you're writing, all you're doing is writing unit tests for the person, I would love to hear what the motivation here is, because I can see a situation where this would be something. I would not go about it this way, but this is sort of, I found this to be an issue in many people, and it's one of those, it's like one of the things that might be missing. I made a video a while back that is called like what are the characteristics of like the perfect software developer, and one of the personality characteristics of like what, if you ask me, what the perfect software developer looks like a perfect senior and all of that stuff, is to be a good mentor. Because that's not just to teach juniors, it is that being a good mentor means that you have communication skills where you can take a complicated problem and break it down to a point where it's comprehensible to someone of less skill or less experience. That is a talent that will serve you in everything that you do. As long always, it's the same talent that you have in order to teach your children useful things, or to teach a stakeholder how to explain things in terms that they can understand where they're not technical or things like that. That talent is enormously useful, and usually it goes squandered when for a lot of people it's not something that you really embrace about yourself, because unfortunately not that many people have an interest in actively being a good teacher, and that is a big problem when you're in software. Because if, for example, what I suspect is happening here is one of two things: either the senior is incompetent, like a lazy bum type of like low-end senior, so-called like senior in name but nothing else, right? Who is doing this because you have a very niched way of working in your company, where that person basically just perpetuates their own incompetence onto the rest of the company, and so you're stuck writing unit tests because it might be as simple as this is something that person has to do but doesn't want to. So yeah, it's good if you can do it because they're too lazy to do it themselves or something like that. That is like the negative way of looking at it. The thing that could also be happening is the mentoring thing. It might be that they're trying to teach you something, because the thing about unit testing and doing that sort of thing is that if they are writing code and you are writing unit tests for that code, it creates almost, in a sense, it creates a little bit of a weird pair programming system, if that makes sense. It's sort of like you're not pairing per se, but it creates a platform for pairing, which is very interesting. But if the senior is like developing things and then you are writing unit tests right after, and it's sort of like you're moving together. because you need to unit test the code that they just wrote, and then you might have to talk about it. You might have to discuss how are you going to test this. Is this a good approach? It becomes a feedback system and a way to pair on something without actually having to be in the same room or be in the same video conference or stuff like that, which I unfortunately think is a big mistake, because that's the first rule of mentorship. If your student is scared of you, yeah, that basically means that you won't be able to establish a good trust. And trust between people is the foundation of everything we do. If you're not able to do that, everything kind of comes down to the value of the information that you are giving to people. And sure, you can absolutely teach people a lot of things without having trust and emotional intimacy and so forth, but it becomes a lot easier if that's in place. And that's sort of why I tell people that usually the best mentors are not just people who really know their stuff. They are people who can connect with other people, in a way that makes them feel safe and feels like, yeah, this person, if a good mentor almost always has trust and respect, because they have that ability to connect with people, right? And so if you don't have that ability, but you still have to teach somebody, you're probably going to try to figure out some way of teaching, because every teacher is also you have different quality levels of teachers and so forth, and mentors and so forth. And this could be one way of doing that, because I can imagine if for someone who is trying to teach you to learn how to, if you're a junior software developer or if you're new to the code base, this would be a way for you to sort of shadow, in a sense, that person and get exposure to the code. It's not how I would do it personally, but I can imagine somebody having the idea that, oh yeah, since I'm the person who knows all the things, well, if I just have my new hire here write unit tests for me, then they're gonna sort of, it's almost in a way a junior surgeon or something. You're just gonna stand in the operating room while the experienced surgeon does all the work, right, just so you can get exposure, right? In a similar way, I could think about that. I would say that there are better ways, in my opinion, to do this, but that could be a possibility as well. So what I want you to take away from this is that no, it's very, very not common for a senior engineer to write a bunch of code and then just have the new engineer just do all the unit testing. That's something that should probably, well, every senior software developer should write their own tests, assuming that they are writing tests, which is not always the case. And as a new hire, you kind of have to figure out what's going on here. If it is the case that they're trying to just do this as a temporary thing to kind of teach you how the code works, then don't sweat it so much, because they're probably just trying to mentor you in their own way, but they might not be super good at it, perhaps, or they're just very lazy people and they kind of want to do something that feels comfortable for them while still justifying to their manager that they're teaching you things. There's all kinds of things that go on here, because mentors are also people. And trust me when I say this, guys, I've had many teachers, and some of them have been so fucking lazy that the education was basically just a question of how easy can I make my life while still cashing in my paycheck as the teacher. And I'm sorry to say that some mentors are like that, or teachers are like that. Not everybody, but some are. And the other way to look at it is that, yeah, this person is pretty much incompetent and forcing you to bridge that in some fashion with unit testing and so forth. Yes, they kind of give you bad tasks and so forth because they're not really looking out for you or what's good for the company. And you need to figure out which one it is. And when you know, either just continue as is, and sooner or later you're going to be able to pick up things that are not just unit tests, or quit, because this is long term going to be very destructive for your personal development. Have a great day.